welcome back to our Remarkable Women Powerful Stories, our leadership series, sponsored by Zonta International. And I thank you so much for joining me once again today for our fabulous conversation with my guest, Sara Diana Faraj. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Our pleasure. And I'm Lynn Foley, and I'm chairman of the Zonta Spirit Working Group this year in the next biennium for Zonta International. And I just love meeting all of the fabulous guests. And today we have a very special guest in Sarah. I wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and also pay that respect to any First Nations people present today. Zonta, as you know, is a leading global organisation with clubs across 64 countries. And our motto of building a better world for women and girls is what we all pay attention to, and looking for the worldwide reality of gender equality. So now to Sarah, and to welcome you formally. Sarah has an amazing biography already at her early stage of career. But there's a couple of really important things, and you'll hear it all unfold in our conversation. But Sarah was born just after her parents arrived here in Australia as refugees fleeing from Iraq and Lebanon. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on today. But one of the things from her biography that I'm going to pursue in conversation today is, since I was 12 years of age, the modern emergence of democratic ideals and emerging wave of feminism has lit a fiery flame of passion inside of me. And I hope to enter politics and be a part of the necessary change for our modern world, and be a voice for women who may not be able to speak. So on that note, Sarah, welcome to our conversation today.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me. It's an honour to be a part of this webinar series.
Thank you, Sarah. So as I often do, let's start with the beginning for you. Where and how has your story begun?
So as you said before, my parents arrived to Australia in the year 2000 as refugees. My dad's from North Iraq and my mum's from Lebanon. And they met and married in Germany and decided to make their way here because they couldn't go back to their countries because of the war. And after they arrived here, they were refugees in Port Hedland for a while. And soon after that, I was born. And I lived my younger life for a little bit in Sydney, and then after that in Bathurst. And it was actually, in grade 6 when I really had my big spotlight moment where I was like, I need to be a politician. And it was sitting in grade 6 class, studying democracy. And my teacher was trying to get us to be, engaged in this great debate. And he was trying to get everyone to really talk and tell them how they felt. And everyone was biting, but I just really had to say what I had to say. So I stood up and I said my piece, and I just had this light bulb moment. And I was like, wow, okay, I think I found what my calling is. So, after that, I just decided that everything I did, I would pour my energy into pursuing that. And as we learned about democracy, we also learned about feminism and women's rights, and what the suffragettes of the early waves of feminism had to go through to get to where we were today. And it just inspired me. And as I look back to the countries that I'm from, I realized that women's rights are not a very focused area. And so I've put it in my hindsight to chase that and to make sure that becomes a thing of the past.
Excuse me. Yes, so it's such an interesting, I guess, field, and an interesting thing that you're wanting to do with some of your life as you go forward, Sarah. I'm wondering, given you may not have your own personal memory of being a refugee and being in the accommodation and detention centre in Western Australia here in our country, but I'm wondering how that's influenced you through your parents and through everything so far in your life.
Every day I thank mum and dad for coming to Australia in more ways than one, not just verbally. But I know that if they hadn't made this journey and chosen to start their family here, that my life would be very different from what it is. I always, made sure that my education was at the forefront of my mind during my schooling time. And now that I'm at uni, because those things wouldn't have been available to me. My life would have been so different if I was to live in the Middle East. You know, I probably would have been married and had my own kids now, which is not something that I need at this stage. But yeah, mum and dad coming here and doing what they've done and raising us here has changed my whole world perspective. It's made me definitely into a very grateful person and a hardworking person at that, because I know that I've been given these opportunities, so therefore I will not waste a single second of them. My parents both changed through that. They see that Australia is full of opportunity, and they try and make sure that myself and my siblings are able to achieve and have those best opportunities that we have had already and continue to have. And I'm just so grateful for that, and grateful to live here.
That gratitude is such an important part of being a human, but I hear it in your conversation as something that's it feels to me like it's a platform. It's like it's so much a part of you that's what exudes from you when you're in conversation with people and in all the work you do. I hear that very, very strongly.
Definitely.
So just to, I guess, round off your family story, you made a reference then to siblings. So I know you're the oldest in your family, aren't you?
No, I'm actually second. I do have an older sister.
Wow, and you have an older sister and then you have younger siblings.
Yeah, so it's my older sister is 25, then I'm now 20. My younger sister is 14 and my younger brother is 11.
So you have a very busy household.
Yes, we do.
So what brought your family all the way from Port Hedland? And for those people who don't live in Australia, Port Hedland is on the very west of our country in the state of Western Australia in the northwest, and is a stepping off point into our country sometimes. And now you live on the east coast, far on the east coast in Hervey Bay. And Hervey Bay is the beachside suburb in Queensland, here in Australia, in the state where I live. So what brought your parents all the way across the country and to choose Hervey Bay?
Well, we've had quite the journey in terms of moving. I believe about a month after I was born, we moved to Sydney, and I grew up in the suburbs of St. Mary, St. Clair, Penrith for, I think, about the first 8 years of my life. And then we decided the city was too much, so we moved to central Western New South Wales and lived in Bathurst for about 9 years. My parents had a hobby farm, they had a business, went to school, fed animals, did everything. Honestly, it was amazing. But then my dad's brain injury caught up to him. He fell off of a roof a few years back in 2007, and the doctor said, right, it's time for you to, tune everything down, move somewhere warmer, because it was freezing in Bathurst, and quieten your life down. And so we came up to Hervey Bay for a holiday. And at first I was like, no, I don't want to move here. I hate it here. It sucks. Because I was starting my senior years in school down in Bathurst, and I sort of had myself mentally set up. But once we moved here, just changed my whole perspective, and I've never looked back, to be honest. I absolutely love it here. I've got my friends here, my family here, my partners here. My community is in Hervey Bay, and I just absolutely love every piece of it and every bit of it, and I wouldn't change it for the world. And
so as we explore, we'll talk about community, because you're very, very immersed in your community and a community leader. And I shy away from saying a young community leader, because age I don't think is relevant. You are a community leader. It's not relevant. And of course, I haven't yet said out loud that Sarah is the president of a Zonta club in Hervey Bay, and does have the honour of being the youngest president globally in Zonta. And it is a little unusual, but I know that your club is very, very fortunate to have you as their president currently. From our earlier conversation, I know that you're an electorate officer for your state politician, and you found your way there through the most interesting chain of events, a lot of which was a lot of what's the word, chutzpah, a lot of feistiness got you there. So I'm wondering if you'd like to share that with us.
Yeah, I I'm quite the opportunist, I think. Every time I see a little opportunity or an open door, I barge my way through, I guess. But it's worked in my favor thus far, so I'm not going to stop. So when I graduated school, I went to Europe for about 5.5 weeks, saw my family, had an amazing time. And as soon as I came back, COVID became our world's new reality. And so I hesitated on moving to a big city to go to university and decided to just keep my casual job and plod along until, things had settled down. Little did I know. But I was sort of just bored, I guess. I couldn't fathom having my part-time job and wasting the rest of my time. So I approached our local mayor and I said, hi, I'm Sarah. I'm looking to get into politics, but before I put my hand up to be a politician, I need to know what every level of government does, what they're responsible for, and I need to know the ins and outs of it. So can I please do work experience with you? And I think I was the first ever person to approach our local council to do work experience because they had nothing in place to do so, but they do now. And so I just sort of wriggled my way in and spent, I think, the good part of 6 months doing work experience with the local mayor, with the local councillors. I went to exec meetings. I did day trips. It was honestly really good. There was a few funny stories in between, popped tire in the middle of nowhere sort of thing. But it was just such an amazing experience. And then we got to state election time and I was like, all right, here's another opportunity. So I put my hand up to volunteer for the running member of the next town over in Maryborough. And then I realised that I could support both the candidate for Hervey Bay and for Maryborough. So I did that. We campaigned long and hard, hours out in the sun, handing out how to vote cards. And then the eve of the state election, the mayor called me up and said, hey, the Premier is coming to town tomorrow. It's very hush-hush. Don't tell anyone, but would you like to come to lunch? And I think I pierced his eardrums with how loud I squealed. But I did say yes. And I called my boss and I said, you need to replace my shift tomorrow. I'm meeting the Premier. And he was like, of course, without a doubt. So the next day, I met the Premier and I met the new member for Hervey Bay. And, we had lunch together and spoke about who I was and what I wanted to do. And within a few weeks, I got a phone call for a job. So it was just a very lucky chain of events and one of an opportunity.
So maybe the end point was lucky that you got a call, but I wouldn't describe the rest of it as lucky. So in my listening to your story, Sarah, so what is it about you think that caused that door to open and then something to happen? Because lots of doors open for us, don't they? Lots of doors open. Sometimes we don't go through them and sometimes we're not let go through them. So there was something there about, yes, you got the door open, but maybe this time you didn't barge through. It was like someone pulled you through, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was in a sense, because I really wasn't expecting that to come out of it. I wasn't, job hunting or anything like that. I just had a conversation, and that's what led to the job. So yeah, it was amazing. I remember actually the phone rang while I was at work twice. And I remember seeing the name pop up and I was just like, okay, this is interesting. And, this is at 2:00 and I finished at 6:00 and I was just on edge the whole shift. So as soon as I got out, I ran to the car park and called back, and all my work colleagues are just looking at me because I'm jumping up and down like, yes, yes, yes.
Yes, you didn't have to think twice or say, can I get back to you?
No, I didn't.
No. Absolutely not. So that started, and I know you've been working in that role now for a little while. You mentioned also earlier that you're currently studying political science, so you must be doing that by online, I suspect.
Yeah, so I never ended up moving to the big city for my degree, and I'm actually really grateful for that. So I study online in the minute spare moments that I have, sometimes very late nights. But it's been interesting, and I think it's fine. I mean, I go by it fine. I think it's great that we have these online facilities. And political science is a very interesting field because it covers both what's happened in history and how we've got to where we are and what's currently happening in the world. So it's a great way to explore politics on a different playing field.
What's the main fascination with politics for you? Or maybe fascination sounds a bit low level, but the fascination, you mentioned earlier that where from a very young age you went, I want to be a politician. But what's the core? If you had to bring it to one core statement, what is it that causes you to really want to be in politics?
I think it's the ability to make grassroots change. I think a lot of people think that to make change that's positive change, you have to be up in the air, jumping up and down and screaming about it. But there's also the ability to make grassroots change at a policy and legislation level. And I find that very interesting. Not only that, though, I find that if I'm able to use my voice to represent as many people as possible and make sure that their voice and their interests and their needs are heard, then my job is done. I believe in service and community service, and it's one of my core values and something that I absolutely love doing. Every single day I wake up grateful that I can do that, and helping others and seeing the positive changes that we can make is what fuels me every day.
So with that leading into your community work, your broader community work, I know you work for your local state politician, which takes you into community, but you also in your own right are doing so much in community. Tell us about that award you won earlier this year.
I was fortunate enough to be awarded the Young Citizen of the Year for the Fraser Coast Regional Council. And that was a huge surprise and a huge achievement for me. I was absolutely beside myself and, just really grateful for all the support that this local community gives me to be able to do what I do. And I wouldn't be where I was without the community behind me. So I dedicated the award to my community, to my family, to my partner, to my friends, that everyone that's been behind me throughout this journey.
Lovely. And so, as I mentioned earlier, you are president of the Zonta Club of Hervey Bay, and being the youngest president in the world. What drew you to Zonta?
I was introduced to Zonta soon after I graduated from school through the Young Women in Public Affairs Award. One of my past teachers actually pushed me to apply for it. And I did, and I was successful in that. And when I won, I didn't let it stop there. I was like, okay, now that I've done this, what can I do with it? Where can I go with it? And who can I help with it? So I sort of drew myself into Zonta, and I learned and recognized what it was about and what the organization aims to achieve. And I absolutely fell in love and said, this is exactly what I've been talking about my whole life. Where has Zonta been my whole life? And so in the lovely Hervey Bay group, I met some people I would consider lifelong friends and decided that I just absolutely had to join. And I didn't care that it was so weird that I was so young, but I just thought, this is it, this is me. And, if I start now at, I think it was 18, 19, where can I go in this, what can I do in this organization to make the world a better place? So it's been an absolute whirlwind thus far, and I'll never forget when I found out I was the youngest president in the world. I was actually in Brisbane with my dad, who was buying a tractor at the time. So he's climbing all over this giant tractor, and I get a phone call, and I'm pacing around this, giant paddock, and I've just bought a new car as well. And I get the phone call, and I just was like, wow, really? And I was just absolutely beside myself. And, the whole drive home, I was just drumming along on the steering wheel and like, wow, I've really done this. And it was just a phenomenal feeling.
And that's what brings you to me as well in this amazing series of remarkable women. So it seems to me and to others that you have a very powerful voice. You're using this to support change. one of the big challenges, and you referred to it a little yourself, about age in many, many organisations, the membership is ageing chronologically. And the challenge in Zonta and in many other organisations like ours is to hear the voice of younger people, in our case, particularly younger women. And it's not just to hear it, it's to do something with it and to find ways to change ourselves and our approach to embrace and to engage women who are younger in our organisation, like it was when we were younger. So if we go back to when many of us in my age group joined, we were the young ones coming into this organisation. It's about building a better world for women and girls. So I'm wondering what your perspectives on that, and how do we create clubs that are more relatable to younger women, and what might it look like and feel like?
So that's a really good question, and a question I've been asked a lot. But I think it's important that we acknowledge this. There's a few different facets, I guess, to creating a club that allows younger women to be a part of it. And I guess the first one is looking at the differences between when maybe yourself and other more mature-aged people would have been members, and what life was like back then for you, and how was your work-life balance, how was your household structured, and how have things changed. So how can we adapt, I guess, our core model of Zonta to fit in with both age groups now, because we do have both age groups as part of our clubs, and I'm really grateful for that. So I guess that's one avenue that we have to explore, and it's just sort of like a business. You have to find out who you're targeting and how you're going to target them. And it does take a little bit of work, but it's very well worth it. If we've got single mums that work full time, how can we cater to those people? And I think like the e-clubs are a great example of that, because that you don't need to travel here and far, and you can still fundraise and you can still do everything all from the comfort of your lounge room. So I think that's really important. Another thing is, this is, part of my everyday job, is how do you market to these younger people? How do we attract these younger people in? What are we saying? What type of language are we using? And where are we targeting? So I guess as an example, more people my age are more likely to use Instagram over Facebook. So are we targeting Instagram users? Who are we targeting? What age are we targeting? And how are we ensuring that our message is relatable to young women? So, if they're at a stage of their life where they're just, fresh out of school and they're going to enter university, then we wouldn't target them with ads about, having a family and having kids, for example. So yeah, I guess it's a multifaceted approach, and it's one that is very achievable. It just takes time and effort and work. But I think as an organization and as a club, we can, if we each do our bit, we'll be very successful in that.
So it's finding the things out of this, building a better world for women and girls, which is our way forward, and always has been, with empowering and advocacy and so on. It's finding the relatable pieces of that to younger people, isn't it? Finding, well, what's the cause, or what's the fiery passion? You talked in your bio about that fiery passion to do something through politics, and you talk about grassroots and community work. But what is it that fires? What puts the fire in the belly of young people today? And where does that fit with Zonta? And where does that fit with Zonta? And sometimes we often talk about the sisterhood and the fellowship and the things that bring us to Zonta, which is that connection, that really strong connection with people and making friends. But it's also about the cause, and what cause we're here to make a difference in, isn't it? Yeah. So what other causes or topics are close to your heart, Sarah?
Oh, where do I start?
Fire in your belly outside of politics or around politics?
I'm obviously very passionate about women's rights and women's equality. I'm also very passionate about the youth, I guess, and there's again very different facets that come with that. It's making sure that the youth are not left behind, in a sense where when you go out of school and you have this huge reality check that now I'm on my own, what do I do? I've worked a lot in community about uplifting those people and making sure that they have the facilities and the resources that they need to get to where they want to be. That's something that I hold very close to my heart. I mean, where do I go next? I'm passionate about a lot of different things. Bringing them all together is quite hard, but I guess a lot of them come through and filter into my sort of political sphere. So community and service to others is probably the big umbrella that overlaps everything that I'm passionate about. But yeah, definitely helping others and ensuring that women have their place in the world, and men too. I mean, we can't leave our men behind on this journey. They're a really important part of our journeys as women, ensuring that our men understand us, understand our issues, and we understand theirs, and that we educate one another and then go on the journey together. And that's really important to me, and I'm grateful that I have a family and a partner and friends that support that in me, and that understand that I'm out there and I'm loud about it and I'm proud about it. So that's really, really lovely to have.
That loud and proud is what really makes a difference in our ability to make a difference, doesn't it? Like how we're noticed and what we talk about and who we talk about. And I say to everyone that I work with, still in my work, the standard I walk past is the standard I accept. And so if I don't like what's going on for women, but I hear or see something that's taking us down, then it's on me. It's on me to make sure I do something about that. And that's that piece about having courage and bravery and all of the things that make us good leaders, isn't it? So with that in mind, sorry.
That's definitely something I say a lot to my peers, is when they say, oh, you know, I'm not really happy about this and not really happy about that, and this sucks and this is stupid. And I always say, okay, I acknowledge your feelings and I validate them, but what is it that you're doing about it? And if they say nothing, then I look at them and say, well, find something to do about it. And I think that's really...
We can moan and groan about it and do all the things you say, but it's when are we going to step forward and do something? And if we don't wish to step forward and do something, do we still have the right to groan about it? I'm not sure there. So moving on to that in leadership, because you're establishing yourself and have established yourself as a leader in your community and beyond. So who've influenced you along the way? And do you have mentors, or how do you work your way through that growing as a leader?
Along the way, I can say that my grade 6 teacher had a lot to do with my love for politics and you know, that passion that lit within me. And I actually still talk to him all the time, which is really lovely. My family and my parents have played a big part in shaping me to who I am, to telling me to, you know, have my voice heard, and teaching me the rights and the wrongs, and helping shape my morals. I won't say that they've constructed them, because at the end of the day, you're also responsible for your own morals and ethics, but they've definitely played a part in doing that and making sure that I know what community service looks like. Other mentors would have to be like the local mayor who showed me the steps through, you know, through learning about local government. My partner actually is a mentor to me. He's a little bit older and has a bit more lived experience, and he always looks to, when I decide to have my little whinge and sook, he looks towards how he can help make things better for me, or how he can guide me through it, or give me some advice about how to best tackle things. And I think that's really important. But just so many different people across the community have my back and make sure that I know what I'm doing and where I'm going, and give me bits of advice here, but they're always open to listen to what I have to say as well, which is really important, because sometimes I'll be saying something and I'll just come to a sudden realization that, wow, like, no, this is actually how it should be, or my opinion has suddenly changed, or I've learned something whilst I've been conversing with them. So it's really, really grateful for that, and really important that you have those people in your life to help you through these things.
And while you have a voice, and a strong voice, you also have the power to listen. And so that listening it's something and hearing from others matters. And that's, I think, what you're saying there is, well, there's a lot of people around you, and it's the whole reverse mentoring. I think those of us who are lucky enough to intersect and connect with women such as yourself, there's the reverse mentoring. Like, it's important for, and it'll be other members in your community, not for them always to see themselves as the mentor of you, but how are you the mentor of us? And I see that one of my earlier guests on Remarkable Women last year talked a lot about what we call reverse mentoring. Well, it's not just about me to assist you, it's how do you assist me, and I've got to be open to that and the learning I get from you, which I am. So I think, I don't know whether you see that as an important part of the leadership journey or not.
Definitely do. Mm-hmm. It's important that we listen.
So what do you think your leadership, I've interrupted you again, I'm sorry. I was going to say, what are your leadership powers or gifts? What do you think they are?
I think I'm easy to talk to for a lot of people because I'm very open to just about anything. And I find that a lot of my friends and peers find it easy to confide in me or to talk to me about things because I will definitely listen. I think that being confident is also important, but not confident to the point where you're the best person in the whole world, but confident to the point where if someone brings something to you and needs raising, that they can confide in me and know that I will raise it for them. I think that I am a listener, and I try my best to listen to others when they have a point of view as well, so I can then encapsulate that point of view with my own and come out with the best advice, I guess, in the end, or the best outcome for them. I find it really hard to talk about myself in this way, but I think, I try my best to be a great listener, to be a great advocate for others, not only myself. It's easy for me to get up on stage or get up in this webinar or get up anywhere and just talk about what I believe in, what I think is best. But that's not what a leader is. A leader is someone that takes everyone's combined ideas, everyone's voices, and represents not only themselves, but the rest of their collective cohort to ensure that the voice that is heard is a collective voice, not just their voice. So being a leader doesn't mean that it's all about you. And I think sometimes that is forgotten in the realm of our modern world, but it's actually about the collective, the community, the cohort, whoever it is that you're representing. You need to make sure that you have their voice, not only yours. And that's really important to me.
And I think that's a very clear message for all of us, is embracing that collective understanding. So those of us who choose to be members of things, in the case today, it's a member of Zonta, but all of the other organisations or areas where we are a member of family, a member of community, or a member of other clubs and organisations, it's remembering we're there on behalf of the whole. And I know in my ongoing work internationally, we're talking about a thing called Zonta Spirit, which is really other words for the culture that's created in a club, or a culture that's created in community. And I think in my lifetime, we've lost a lot of that service mentality and community feel. And I hear you talking about how important that is in your community. And while you are a regional town or city, it's a very popular city, particularly for tourists and for a range of people of all ages, but it's getting a disparate community back. So is that some of what's driving you, that, or not? Have I misinterpreted?
No, I acknowledge that Hervey Bay is a growing regional city, and we have a huge drive for tourism. I mean, we've got, the best whale watching in the whole world, and that is indefinitely the case. It's changing very rapidly, and as a community leader, I notice that every single day as I drive to work, or as I'm, in downtown shopping and everything like that. And I think it's really important that we accept those changes and ensure that our model of leadership caters to that. We've got a lot of older people in our community, which is changing slowly. But our community is primarily older, so we have to look at how best to service those people, ensure that, towards the end sort of their lives, that they're able to have the best lifestyle possible. So yeah, you are right, Lynn, when you say that. It's very important, and Hervey Bay is just a place that's got my heart. I don't know how else to explain it, but it just does. It's got my heart, and being able to be immersed in my community there is just the best thing.
And the message I take from that is that finding a community that we feel part of and that we feel connected to matters to everyone. I think sometimes we think it matters to people who are a little older, and I know I'm searching for that sense of community, and I'm spending time in a couple of different communities at the moment looking for that sense of community, to re-engage more closely with a real community rather than an organisational community that we have when we're working. We have that organisational community, and it's very interesting, and I often wonder whether for young people, one of the things that they struggle to find is that broader sense of community in the places where they live, and can contribute to their feelings of disenchantment, etc. So that's just a thought I have, and we can leave that in the air, but that notion of what does community look like for a young person, I think is something I don't understand because I'm not a young person. You've got a sense of community and you understand it and you've created it for you.
Definitely.
So I wonder, moving forward as we head down towards the end of our time together today, have you faced a tough challenge or a roadblock or a barrier maybe? How did, particularly those that knock your confidence and resilience, just take you on a slide, how do you go about managing that, and how do you either getting rid of the barrier, but particularly managing yourself with that confidence and resilience slump that comes to us?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think I could say that I've faced only one tough challenge. I think I can say I've faced numerous. The first one, and the one that probably frustrated me the most, was the racism that I face and continue to face. My first day of school in Hervey Bay, I was called a terrorist, and I didn't take to that very well. I think since I was a younger teenager, the coping mechanisms I used then and what I use now have changed drastically, and I'm a much better person for it. But those things that come with racism and the hate and the prejudice, they are a lot, and they're enough to knock someone down. And my whole family's faced it as well. So, I'm not alone in this. The way I overcome it is I sort of self-evaluate and sit down, and I tell myself that I know I'm not a terrorist. I know I'm not a bad person. And I extract myself as the problem in that situation. So I'm not the problem. The problem is the person, whoever thought this, has either seen something or heard something or been taught something, and that's the problem. The problem is what they've seen or heard or been taught. That's the problem. I'm the problem. I'm not an issue. I'm not here to take people's jobs and blow up the country. I'm here just like everyone else, doing my thing and servicing my community. So that's been a tough one for me to come to grips with. And I guess another way I overcome it is I turn to my loved ones, my friends, my family, my partner, and that's my support. That's my back. Those people have my back. They're my brick wall. Another tough challenge that I faced was had a few health issues, nothing too dramatic, but enough to sort of knock me off my feet for a bit. And they also sort of coincided with when I moved to Hervey Bay and have just been sort of ongoing since then. And I guess it's frustrating, to say the least. And sometimes it just emotionally drains you because you're like, now what's wrong with me? Another blood test, another doctor's appointment, another day in bed. And that sort of, sometimes I feel like, I've spent the day in bed, now I'm falling behind and I haven't done this and I haven't done that. And I sort of have to make myself stop and say, this is your body telling you something, today I need to rest. So I need to reward myself with that. So that's been a tough challenge as well, because I'm always go, 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 go. And sometimes when I stop, everything just catches up with me. But again, I overcome this with having conversations with myself to tell myself, you know, it's going to be okay. This, you know, what steps am I taking to fix this? Because if I'm not doing anything, then it's not going to be okay. And again, having my back, having my brick wall, having my family, my friends, my partner to sort of have my back and say, hold my hand, or anything that they do to make sure that I get through it. So they're probably my two biggest challenges. Another one would be the sexism and the ageism that comes with living in a community like I do, where, you know, oh, aren't you too young to be doing this? Or, you know, oh, you're always the youngest in the room, or oh, you're a woman, you won't get to do this, or why are you doing that? And all this other stuff, where I just make it my mission to prove them wrong. And that's how I overcome that one. And if I do, I do. If I don't, that's fine. I'll try again. But they're probably my toughest challenges that I've faced thus far.
I particularly relate to the number 2 and number 3 personally. Number 1, of course, living in a country where my race is the prevailing race, reasonably prevailing race. It's not something I experience, but I witness it. And I think one of the greatest issues we face in our world is racism. It seems to be the basis of everything. Sexism and ageism, of course, sit with it and make it multiply. It's almost like racism's there if you're a woman, it seems to multiply or escalate. And if you're older or younger, ageism just isn't about being older, is it? Ageism is present all the way through. The same things that you talked about, I get. Aren't you too old? You know, why are you still working? Why are you still doing this? And in your case, you get it, well, you're too young to have a voice. You shouldn't be there. And then the sexism or the gender issue overlays that about women. And I've said this to many of my guests, Sarah, that I did think that when I got to my age, I would have seen a much closer world around gender. I actually thought we wouldn't be still waiting 147 years from the World Economic Forum's report to get gender parity across the world. And I'm so disappointed that the baby boomer generation hasn't been able to bring that off. We've got so much more work to do. But racism for me, and hearing your comments about racism still brings tears to my eyes. So I can't live in your skin there, but I certainly have the empathy for it. And I wish we had ways of reducing that. As you say, the problem is for the person doing it. It's not your problem, but still, I hear that, and I can't imagine how much that knocks resilience and confidence. But I know our people who watch our webinars constantly are always really interested in how it is we overcome those. So I love the way you've talked about that. So thank you for opening up about those things. But we have a lot of work to do. Do you think Zonta can do more about those issues that you've just raised in the roadblocks? Where do you think Zonta can take that?
I think it would be advocacy that these things exist and they're faced by everyday women. Now that would be more of a localized project, I guess, for each district or each club or wherever they sat. But I think it's important that we acknowledge that it still exists, because I talk about it to people sometimes and they're like, what? Wow, in Hervey Bay? And I'm like, yeah, in Hervey Bay, in Hervey Bay, and downtown Sydney, and wherever I've been. You know, I've been the only person to get bomb checked every time I go to the airport for the last 6 years or something. As long as I can remember backwards. So, you know, and you tell people that and they're like, really? And I'm like, yes. But if we don't converse about it, if we don't talk about it, then it doesn't change, because word of mouth is one of the greatest forms of education, which it can backflip on itself and go badly if we're talking about the wrong things. But if we're talking about the right things, and that's been very evident in the Me Too movement and the, you know, March for Justice movements, that the word of mouth has created this big movement where people are saying no more, we will not put up with this anymore. So I think it's really important that as an organisation that looks to empower women and advocate for women and make sure that we live in a world of equality, that we look at the multifaceted approaches wherein women are discriminated against, because it's not only for being a woman, it's for being a woman of color, being a woman of color with a disability, and vice, the list goes on and on and on. So I think that we should address that, definitely, and add that to our list of things we advocate for as an organisation.
So is it about more courage and more bravery and having a voice and a collective voice? It's one thing to fundraise and give service, but there's another thing about advocacy doesn't translate terribly well into many languages at all, I know. But if we talk about that better world we're chasing, is it about bravery? I come back to that. I'm not sure whether I'm on the money either, but I go, is it about bravery and courage, and how do we step forward? You're a perfect example of someone who is stepping forward and having a voice all of the time. And so how do we get that collective voice of 25,000 members of Zonta around the world to really make a difference in their local communities, which adds up? I don't know. I think it's the research question of the day, but I put that forward, I guess, for our people watching us today to think about, is how do we do that? How do we get the power of our voice?
Yeah, definitely. Very important question.
So it is. We need to move to a close, Sarah, which is disappointing because it's a lovely conversation we're having. I wonder, you don't have much spare time in your life when you talk about everything. And maybe the only spare time you get is when you're forced, as you say, to go to bed because you've not been well. When you do get that moment to do something that you love, what would it be? Do you read? Do you watch something? What's your guilty pleasure in terms of television or reading?
Okay, to put it in perspective, I wake up before the sun and I come home after the sun's gone down. So there's not much spare time in there. Nope. My exercise, I love to go to the gym. That helps me mentally and physically prepare myself for everything. I play basketball, even though I'm very short. That also helps to
but you can run fast. You can run fast.
Yeah, I think so. I love to read, I don't know what I would call it, pretty much anything. I really am open to reading. I was a real bookworm nerd when I was younger. I mean, I've won competitions for reading so many books. I used to read for about 6 hours a day when I was a kid, until I would get in trouble for reading. So yeah, give me a good book and you won't hear from me for a long time. Again, I love watching like drama crime. Like I love, those crime shows where there's a little bit of romance, there's a bit of drama. Stuff like Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Castle and stuff like that, and Bones and everything. Love that. I love immersing myself in a show where it makes me think, but I'm not thinking too hard, but I'm still thinking. I'm not just brain dead. Because I don't really know how to switch off properly. But yeah, in my spare time, I love going to the beach. My partner and I always find really interesting things to do. We jet ski, we go to the beach, we go to arcades and stuff. So, he's like my best friend too. I love just chatting to my friends, just sitting around and chatting. Obviously, as we've all heard today, I'm not too shabby at talking a lot, but yeah, just the simple things in life. Sometimes I'll play the keyboard and have a bit of a sing, or do some dancing or something. Just a lot of different things that I do. Sort of depends on the mood I'm in, I guess.
So you have a lot of things that keep you sane, and you, like all people do. I have a guilty pleasure in crime fiction as well. I just love crime. I love reading it, listening to it, watching it, and it is the psychological thriller thing, isn't it? Who did this and where did it all come from?
Definitely.
So Sarah, what's next for you?
What's next? I've been fortunate enough to have been recently accepted into the QUT Pathway to Politics program for women. and I've just about commencing that on the 1st of August. So it's a program wherein basically women are selected to learn everything it is about becoming a politician on all 3 levels of government. And I'm so excited and honoured to be a part of that this year, and I will put in every ounce of strength and participation that I can. So that's sort of coming up for me immediately. In the near future, I'm hoping that in the next few years, I'll be not eligible, I guess. I'll be ready to run for an elected position. I don't know what yet, but I have always wanted to run for office at a younger age and make my impact young, and while I'm, fresh and ready and pumping to go. I don't think I'll be a career politician. I don't see that for myself, but I see myself, going in, making change and doing what I can do best for my community, really early on in my life. And then after that, I'm not too sure yet, but I know that a big part of my journey will be with Zonta. I know that I'll be a member for as long as I can, and who knows, I might break the world record for being the member for the longest amount of time. But yeah, I'll try that. But yeah, at the moment, just really focusing on bettering myself as an individual, making sure that, my health and my happiness is at the forefront, but also focusing really hard on uni and on the Pathway to Politics program and just furthering my career.
Sarah, it's an absolute pleasure to know you, and an absolute pleasure to have had this conversation with you today, and the fact that we're sharing it with the world for whoever wishes to come in and watch what you're saying and what we're doing today. I'm uplifted. The power of voice, your courage, your bravery, all of those things are an absolute inspiration. And you're so incredibly aspirational for yourself, for your family, and for your community. Zonta is blessed to have you as part of our Zonta family, and it has been my greatest privilege to talk with you today. So thank you so much for giving me time and for preparing for our conversation. And I know whatever you do next, you will have that power of the voice, and people like me and everyone else will listen to you and will work with you to take it forward with yourself and your colleagues in whatever you choose to do.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been quite the honour, and I appreciate the chance to share my story with everyone.
So moving forward, as always, we'll have another guest in August, and that guest will be announced shortly. And thank you, everyone who's watching us today, for being a great promoter of the stories of our remarkable women. Spread the word, and you can find us, of course, on YouTube and on zonta.org. So until next time, have a great day. And again, Sarah, thank you so much.
Thank you.